Real quick, before we start this podcast episode, I just want to say thank you for tuning into the Marc Colcer podcast. I know you've got a million things that you could be doing right now, and the fact that you're taking time out of your day to watch this podcast episode truly means the world to me, and I just want to say thank you for that. If you'd like to continue to support the podcast, right below this video, if you could hit the subscribe button, and then, hey, if you got some more time and you want to hit the download button, the comment button, the like button, the share button, any of those buttons, it's greatly, greatly appreciated. It helps for other people to find out about the podcast, and it helps for you to be notified about future episodes. So if you guys could take a quick second, hit the subscribe button, I would really appreciate that. Outside of that, this episode and every other episode is brought to you guys by Roast Umber Coffee. As some of you guys know, I co-founded Roast Umber Coffee, and we have the greatest farmers in Guatemala and Honduras and the greatest roaster in Grand Rapids, Michigan, all to bring you guys the greatest cup of coffee possible. So if you'd like to try it out, go to our website, use the coupon code MARC30, and you're going to get 30% off your coffee. Now on to the episode. Thank you guys again for tuning in. Welcome to the Marc Colcer Podcast. Man, I've been looking forward to this conversation with you for a minute. I feel like you and I connected a long time ago now when we did the scavenger hunt, right? Was that the first time we met?
I think it was.
I think it was. And we did a scavenger hunt in LA. And then since then, I feel like, everywhere you look, you see Cupcake. I mean, it's everywhere at this point. And so if people aren't familiar, they'll get familiar after this episode. But for people who don't know who you are, can you give a brief intro to yourself?
Yes. My name is Steve, a.k.a. Solana Steve. Somewhat of a Solana OG individual. Born in West Philadelphia. Came out to Los Angeles like 6 years ago after being on an MTV show that was now on Netflix. I don't think it's on Netflix anymore.
What show were you on?
Are You the One?
Really?
That's actually where I met Julia.
Really? Okay.
I met her on the show, and all the dudes were like trying. It was like a dating show, and all the dudes were like, "Yo, like she's it." And when I met her, I was like, "Listen, I'm down to be friends. You're the next Emirata. Let's just work together." And so that's how we started just being friends. And then we started dating and left the show, moved to San Francisco, worked at a couple startups there, and eventually moved down to Los Angeles. Didn't work the first time I was here. Like it just wasn't a vibe, wasn't feeling it. Nothing was hitting.
What year was that?
2017.
Okay.
2017, moved down to Los Angeles from San Francisco. Nothing's really working. So I thought I needed a detox, and I went and lived in Indonesia for 8 months, and then Thailand for 3 months after that.
That really is a detox.
Yes, literally detox, grew my hair long, lived on the other side of the world, so you don't really get to communicate with your friends and family as much because it's complete opposite in Southeast Asia. And after that, thought I still wasn't ready for LA, went to Austin, Texas, lived there for a year, worked in a SaaS company, and then by the end of that, I was like, okay. I think I'm ready.
There we go.
And I came back, and then within 4 months, started Shagmag.
Super similar story to LeBron James coming back to Cleveland after his years in Miami. I see the resemblance here. Okay, so for people who don't know who Julia is and everything like that, give a little bit more context. Who is Julia? And then explain further from there how you got into Shagmag and all that.
Yes, the easiest way to probably explain Julia is Jake Paul's now ex-girlfriend.
There we go.
Julia Rose, that's probably the easiest, best way to explain who she is. She was my ex-fiance. Then started dating Jake, but it just worked out better. So
did she upgrade or downgrade?
You should ask her now. No, but we dated. We just ended up becoming better co-founders than fiancés, I guess the word is.
Yeah.
But we ended up building the brand together for about like 3 years, doing like the World Series stunt in 2019, Holly Boop stunt in February 2021. Did a bunch of cool shit, ran a podcast, did stuff with like Snoop, Jordan Belfort, FaZe. We actually had a lot of cool people on that podcast before they recognized, like Trevor Wallace, Aiden Ross, Jack Harlow. They were like kind of all like middle guys then. Like Aiden wasn't as big as he was. But yeah, we ended up doing that for a little bit, and then it was just conflict between me and her, and I decided to exit and become full-time Solana Steve.
There we go. Okay. So, you ditched the women for Solana.
I mean, yeah. At the end of the day, like nothing can, like, it was one of those things. 'Cause a lot of people ask me like, how did you just like end your relationship? I was like, well, when you got a dream and you want to do something in your life, like you're not going to let anything get in the way of it. So I was just cool with it. I was like, listen, let's be friends. We can work this thing out, but let's build this thing. 'Cause this is something. Like we're not going to let our like relationship, 'cause you want to date someone else and now we're not going to be dating, to ruin it. So I just stood in there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so explain how you got into kind of NFTs and Web3 and all of that kind of stuff from there.
This is interesting because this actually goes back to ShagMag now. We were always looking to build. We actually had a really good tech and dev team at ShagMag. It was one of the things that we, pride ourselves in as a Playboy competitor. And at the time, it was early 2021. And at the end of 2020, my dev, he was into like Bitcoin and like ETH and all that. So he was hyper aware. And he was talking about some Ethereum killer chains like Polkadot was in the conversation back then. Solana. And, we were running around Decentraland. Everything was like $500. It was crazy time. And NBA Top Shot had just released it. It was around that time. They had just released it. They did like $500 million in revenue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And I went right into my office. Was like, yo, we got to do NFTs. They're like, what do you mean? It's like some fad. Like, what do you mean? Because I just come in and say shit. I have the craziest ideas. So we need to do NFTs. We got to do digital magazines, exclusive release on ETH. So we built out an entire platform. It was one of the first in-house platforms that like a Web2 company from end to end, you could connect your Discord. You could buy crypto from our website. I'm pretty sure it's still there, topless.shagmag.com. You could, it was an auction house basically that we'd built. Long story short, our investors were kind of like watching us do this. And one of our investors was just so happened to be connected to Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. They saw this and actually were like, hey, we want to use your dev team to build Stoner Cats, which was their release on Ethereum or, later that year around the Bored Ape time. So we actually just licensed to build a new LLC, ShagMag Technologies, and then licensed the dev team, the tech, to Ashton Kutcher and Mila Kunis. They did 8 million, I think, in 3 minutes. And that's when I knew NFTs were it.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it was actually just complete accident, but
damn.
My dev now is in ETH. He works in ETH now. He works called DeSci. He lives in Switzerland. It's some like science project. Not in a, I didn't say that in a derogatory way. It's literally a science project. Yeah. And he's just killing it.
That's very cool. No, it's always interesting to me. That's one of my favorite questions I ask everybody who comes on here is like, how did you get into this space? Because everybody's story is so beyond different, and like that is a completely different story. And so so after you kind of see NBA Top Shot, you start seeing some of these big projects that are coming out, making a ton of money right off rip. What were your, did you then dive into NFTs, or were you kind of looking at it from like an outside viewpoint of like, I'm going to pay attention to what's happening, but I'm not going to dip my own funds in yet? Or were you like, hey, I'm loading up MetaMask with, 20 ETH and going wild with it?
It was dipping the toes in. Because I was one of them kids. They're going to be 32 in September. I grew up in the era of, God, if I was just a little bit older when social media and apps were starting, I would have been building apps in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So like I knew how like metas worked just throughout time. And I was like, okay, I'm going to dip my toes in Ethereum, see how this whole thing works. But there's not a shot in fucking hell that this is it. It's too archaic. It costs too much. And that's why I really started, asking the devs that I knew, like, what is going to be the Ethereum killer? And that's when I kept reading up on Solana, and I was looking around, and it just made sense. And then the NFTs happened. Then DAA and SMB happened. And then before you know it, that's when I loaded up a Phantom wallet and went crazy in September of 2020.
There we go.
End of August of 2020.
So what was the first NFT that you bought?
SMB.
Okay. And so what made you, I guess, like at that point, outside of like these projects are able to raise a ton of money, because that to me was also exciting. I was looking at it and I was like, the fact that they were able to raise like millions of dollars in like a second and a half without even really knowing anything about them, I was like, that's crazy. At the same time, I was like, this is also a little bit of a red flag that they're able to raise that much money without anybody really knowing anything. Kind of the reason why I wanted to start this podcast, because I was like, I've been rugged too many times. I need to be able to sit on a couch and get to know some of these people, right? But for you, like, I guess, what was it about SMB, or what was it about the NFT mints that were going on Solana at that point that you were like, okay, this is super dope. Not only am I like seeing what they're raising, but I'm now actively participating in these mints and things like that. What made you bullish on it at that point?
I honestly, there was a couple different things. Because I had dabbled in MetaMask and I fucked around on ETH, and like okay, it's expensive. There's tons of attention. OpenSea's great. I fell in love with Phantom Wallet. I knew right away. I was like, this is so easy. It's visually stimulating. It's visually attractive. This is the type of things that adopt way more people than MetaMask. At the same exact time, there was a sense of like social proof and community that I don't know, just it had a gut feeling about it with SMB and DAA. This just felt different. And again, the barrier to entry for a normie, because I had done things on ETH and gotten burnt for like $700 an NFT, and it was like literally immediately dead. Just the way that everything Solana had going for in that moment, I just felt was the perfect pressure cooker to be like, okay, this thing's gonna work. It's a low barrier to entry. I love the UX, the UI. I like the art. I like the communities they're developing. I think this can actually pick up steam, and it did.
I think the thing about, I guess, ETH that I did like, even though I dove into Solana first and then went to ETH, but the thing I liked about ETH was I felt like when I bought projects at that point in time, it seemed so much cheaper because it'd be like, oh, it's 1 ETH, right? Even though ETH was 4K at the moment, right? But like, man, I want somebody to do a study on like now taking in Bitcoin, right? It's like, you see something going on Bitcoin right now with ordinals and it's like, oh, it's 0.1 Bitcoin. And you're like, oh, that's $3,000. Like I got to remind myself that's $3,000, right? And back then of like the late 2021, you would see something on ETH and it'd be like, oh, it's like, 4 ETH. And you're like, oh, that's $16,000, right?
Yeah,
and then
it's a Honda Civic.
Yeah. And then you would see things happening on Solana and it was like, something would rip up to like, 80 Solana when Sol was 250, right? And it would rip there in a day, right? And it was always like, it was also that 80 number just looks so much larger than that 5 ETH number, right? And so it's like, I don't know. I wonder like the studies on that. I'd be curious how that, like, why. Maybe I wonder if some of those numbers like bring in certain people, certain types of people, because they look at it and they're like, it seems lower to me, so I have an easier time spending that money. I always wonder if that plays a role.
It has to, because it's crazy to actually say that the average cost of the first SMBs I bought in late August, September were like $25,000.
Yeah, that's wild.
And the average sell price was about $55,000. And then I got pissed because I sold too early, and the floor was at like $74,000. It was like 347. And I think Sol was like 170, 180, which is crazy.
Oh, yeah. And then I think SMB still holds the record for largest Solana sale, right? It wasn't $2 million?
I think so. Yeah.
Crazy.
Because Solana was...
Yeah.
I got a little delusional. I was like, is this ever going to turn back? I was like, we're going to 1,000.
The moment you start sending the screenshots, you know it's time to sell everything.
I was like, it's November. We could be at 350 in March.
Yeah.
You're like, yeah, chill.
And now that didn't happen. That did not happen.
No.
But okay, so let's fast forward from there to where we're at now. How do you think the Solana space or the NFT space in general has grown? What ways do you think we've declined? What do you think we're doing right? What do you think we could work on? Let's dive into all that.
Okay. Looking at the Solana space now, I've actually been talking to a lot of people about this. I think we're kind of stuck. There's two things. We're stuck in a hamster wheel. People are doing the same things, just a little bit different, but not in the best ways. And I think that we are walking around in that Nokia Motorola moment. And everyone's just waiting for the iPhone. And when that happens, everything's going to change and nothing will be the same. I was actually on the phone with Scum the other day. I hate to actually bring this up and call him out on it. Not call him out, but like bring up the conversation. But we were talking product and talking like developing product and how NFT projects or artists, they want to create, but it's like, oh, okay, I can't dilute my collection. I got to watch what I put out. And it's like, since when has it ever been a concept for an artist or a products company to watch what they put out, to do less? We should be doing more. There should be more creatives, more artists, creating more things and putting as much as they can out into the ecosystem, because that's how they add value. The problem is we don't want to do it because everyone has bags and they get greedy, and it's like greed over. It's like it's really profit over product. And I think we need to move to a system that's product over profit. Because when you have great products, profit just follows. And I think like we were just talking about this. I think DGods, they do a great example of that. They don't give a fuck about what anyone says about what they're doing. They're just going to do it, head down, and do it. I really love what Klano does. I think they're bringing something different to the table. And I don't want to leave anybody out since I'm now naming people, but I'm not impressed anymore with NFTs. I truly think that this will die, all of it, besides the few, like very 0.01%, unless people start to think different and start being honest with each other and saying, hey, listen, like this art sucks. That's not real utility. We need to figure this out or this is over.
I think that to me, there's a line of like what you should keep private and what you shouldn't. Because I think one of the biggest issues that I see with all of this is you see people that have these ideas and they pump up, hey, we're going to announce this on this date, right? And you're like, okay, let's fucking go. They've got something crazy coming, right? And then the announcement comes and the announcement's like, ugh. And you're just like, did that? To me, it's this. If you're going to announce an announcement, if you're going to announce that something's coming, it's got to be so epic that you've got to be able to think about why should somebody talk about this for a month afterwards. Mm-hmm. And if it's not causing people to talk about it for a month afterwards, then you've got nothing. And I think a lot of times, and mind you, that doesn't mean that the announcement's not important. Just don't announce the announcement. Just put it out, right? And I think it's a matter of like, there's only so much time in a day, so people can only put so much energy into so many things, right? And so if you're hyping something up, the hype cycle, every time you do that, the second hype cycle isn't going to be as powerful as the first, right? So it's got to be that if you're going to really hype up an announcement, it's got to be something far more epic than what people are going to even think of. Because that's the other hard part, is that you'll announce an announcement, right? And then people go crazy with like, yo, they're about to do this thing with the Lakers, or like, Drake is going to, they just go nuts with it, right? We're all going to get a free Tesla. And then when the announcement doesn't hit that bar, they're like, well, this was disappointing. Yeah. And it's like, and so the thing to me, even though there are some awesome announcements that just don't get enough love because they were too hyped to begin with, right? Yeah. And so I think, one, it's like managing hype. And then two, it's you can't be afraid to think outside the box, but you've got to find a way to build trust within your community that they're going to give you the opportunity to have the time necessary to think outside the box. Because that's the thing about thinking outside the box, is that so many times people are like, well, you just got to think outside the box. That's the hard part about it. You got to think outside the box. So it takes a second to come up with those killer ideas, because those ideas aren't common. If they were, everybody would be doing it.
I always say ideas are free, but the most valuable asset in the world.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's totally free.
So what do you think, like, do you think the space is maturing now that we're kind of, because I guess in some ways, okay, so you're shaking your head no.
Hell no. We're digressing every day.
Why do you say that?
We're digressing because the ones that we trust to lead the way, for the most part, are not leading the way. The announcement to the announcement happens solely in the greed game. Because when you're a showman, when you're a tastemaker, it's all about the show. It's all about, you care about every single ounce, every single detail in a product, or the way it's unveiled, or no matter what, you're overthinking every single aspect of it. And to come out to an announcement, when you're a creative, you're like, that makes no sense. It doesn't make sense. Why? Don't get me wrong. When you get to a certain level, there is announcement to announcements. That's called hype. It's a hype cycle. But when you're in the beginning, your number one focus should not be hype. It should not be attention. It should be, I need to deliver. And hopefully this product follows. The product will, as long as the product's good, the rest will take care of itself. Those who overhype, it's like they're overcompensating for something. Like even Frank don't even overhype now. It's like, ooh, I'm excited.
Yeah, though we put out the video of me.
Yeah, but that's very chic.
Yeah,
it's very subtle. It's good. These other projects, sometimes like, this is gonna fucking be not a rug, but there's just going nowhere.
Yeah, I think so. Okay, so this would be my other thing. I think that part of it is, it's the expectations that we gotta manage that, right? And then I think it's also the amount of times that the verbiage is too cocky. And what I mean by that is, you'll see a lot of times people say, we're the first project to do this. And then the moment you say that, you give people the opportunity to dunk on you. Like, I'll never say I'm the first project to do or first podcast to do this because I'm probably wrong, right? Like, I don't know every
how
podcast.
Do we know?
Yeah, I don't know
like,
that.
Who's the judge?
Right. And it's like, I can say, you know, okay, I was probably the first podcast that Frank went on. I could say that. I think I was, you know, but but it's like, but I'm not even going to say that definitely because I'm like, you know, somebody might be like, hey, I found a podcast that he did when he was 12, you know, and I'm like,
but at the same time, you don't even like that's the thing though. Like when people do that, you don't need that.
Right. It doesn't add anything. And I think there's so many times that people go, we're the first project to do this. And it's like, but if nobody gives a shit, then that doesn't matter.
Crutch, yeah.
Don't use that as your selling point because by doing that, I think, and so this is why I say, I think the space is maturing in some ways of our expectations are much higher, right? Like the bar in early or in mid 2021 and like early 2022 was so low that like if a founder literally was like tweeted out like eyes emoji, people were like, okay, I'm buying. You know, and now we have a little bit like, you know, people have gotten a little bit more hurt in the last year, which, you know, is never fun. But at the same time, that causes us to mature and goes like, I think there's a number of conversations that can be had in the last year where we're like, yeah, when I did spend X amount of money on that one thing, that was kind of dumb. You know, like certain purchases we had, we can look back and be like, okay, in hindsight, yes, it actually was well thought out and it just didn't work out. And like, that's fine. But there's definitely some where we all look back, we're like, I put like $10,000 into a really dumb project, right? Like that had truly no chance of succeeding, right? And so I do think the space is maturing in that way. But I think it's to me, it's times like this is where I see, okay, we weed out a lot of the people who are here just for like quick flips and whatever. And now we can focus on, okay, what true issues do we have? And you brought that up a second ago where you said like being authentic and honest with ourselves, right?
Yes.
And so, you know, what do you think we need to do a better job of? Because I think right now we have that opportunity to be honest with ourselves and say, hey, what can the space be doing better for us to grow, for us to bring in that when we talk about onboarding, like we do need to grow the space. Like that is something that I think is very important. Like NFTs cannot be looked at as a joke in the next bull cycle. Like it has to be looked at as a legitimate asset. And in order to do that, we also need to clean up our shit, right?
Yeah.
So what do you think we could be doing if you want to address the entire NFT community in
I
space?
actually do. And I think I'm going to lead with this. And I don't think a lot of people have said this, and I think a lot of people need to hear this because I'm a big believer. Like I love Solana. I love the NFT communities. I love everything and all the potential that is there. But I'm also like a realist and I'm trying to build here just as much as anyone and build brands. And you have to just have this, you know, unapologetic sense of hyper awareness. And it's like, no one wants to hear it, but Solana and the communities and the ecosystem have just as much of a blame, we'll call it, for Frank leaving as ETH being better pastures. We need to look at ourselves and say, why was ETH ever a better pasture? Influencers didn't leave Instagram until TikTok was better. And that's on Instagram. Everyone will be like, Instagram fucked up. We just say, oh, ETH was better. Really, Solana was also lesser. We didn't do our job. This ecosystem didn't grow. He did. Then he's like, fuck, I got to leave.
And so what do you think that takes for, like, let's say, for example, Klano or Mad Lads or, you know, Bodogos or, you know, one of these rips to, you know, 500 Sol, right? What do you think what does the community need to do to keep a project like that here instead of seeing them go over to Ethereum or something else like that? And the reason, you know, some would argue why should they leave? The obvious answer right now is people go back to is the liquidity thing, right? Like today, the day we're recording this will probably come out in a week, but the day we're recording this is the Azuki mint, right? And it's like, that was a 2 ETH mint. That is, if you see people on Solana complain about 5 Sol, right? Which is $100 right now, right? Yeah. So $4,000 on ETH and they didn't blink. And on Solana, we have 10 Sol and people will be like, that's a little aggressive, right? Yeah. So, or 5 Sol or whatever, right? And so what do you think needs to happen for that next project to hit that 500 Solana and for them to be like, you know what, we feel confident staying here and getting to 2,000 Solana or 5,000 Solana, and et cetera?
I think we got to be honest with ourselves. I think no one is doing a good job at doing their job. Honestly, we all are so concerned with being friends rather than changing the world and actually building something that'll last. And it's ruining us. It starts from the ground up. It's every single corner, from Solana to the projects, to the KOLs, to the influencers, to the people in communities. It's calling people out and saying, hey, this is what it is, and this is how it needs to be. This is a business. We got to treat this entire thing like a business. Because when you really think about it, CryptoPunks was a free mint. Somehow that ecosystem went from probably pennies for mints, free mints, and scaled. Why didn't Solana scale? We can't blame a competitor. It's always internal. Growth comes from here. Failures come from here. And Ethereum did it. They saw the trajectory. They saw the money came in. And it's harder to use, more expensive to use. But why didn't those people move the same way quality influencers moved from Instagram to TikTok? Because the grass wasn't greener on our side. There was more people. There was more communities. There was more opportunity to get in low and maybe build something high. But we're sitting over here and it's dead ass. Like, there will be someone that everyone's pumping up tomorrow that's probably rugged 10 projects in the last 18 months and pumped 10 dogs that are all worth zero. But everyone's like, maybe they'll be good on this one. And no one's honest. No one's like, you know what, dude? Like, you've pumped 10 fucking trash projects. But no one said, that's FUD. The truth is FUD. Don't be negative. Let's boot him from the space. I think the space is whack and no one takes it seriously because we have this sense of cabin fever and we all want to protect each other like a cult. But the truth of the matter is that we protect the wrong people and we just let the best people walk out the door. But we want to hate on them because they're good. I always tell people, the most hated person in the NBA is LeBron James. The most hated person in the NFL is Tom Brady. For some reason, we are programmed to hate on things that are great. And, we'll shovel shit over here and support terrible projects, terrible ideas, terrible metas. That's a good idea. And it's we've ruined our blockchain. It's now a trailer park of cheap shit. It's a Hobby Lobby. And no one will take us seriously because we've made it that way. We made our bed.
So how do we fix that?
Start being honest with each other.
So how do we do that? Because, okay, I'm going to play devil's advocate here. I'm a big believer that, if I'm bringing somebody into NFTs, right, and they come onto Twitter and they see a bunch of people just shitting on somebody, they're probably not gonna be like, oh, this looks fun, right? I think they're probably gonna be like, this looks toxic as fuck, and they're gonna be out of it, right? So do you think that, what does that look like in actuality? Is that people calling somebody and saying, hey, this is a glaring issue that I think that you have with your project, and here's a solution that I think there could be? Or how do you think that looks in actuality? Because my thing is this: I do think honesty is an important aspect of things, and I do think when it comes to a lot of projects, there are hyped projects all the time, and not just on Solana, but on Ethereum, on all the time. There's all these different hype projects, and I think what it is in some ways we got to find a way for there to be almost a review process ahead of time of being okay, what are you planning on doing? And I try to do that with my podcast, to be honest. I tell people, I'm hey, I would love for you to come on before you mint. That way we can talk about it. We can talk about what you're doing off the podcast. I can give you my honest advice. I've met a lot of different project founders at this point. I feel like I have a pretty unique perspective. I would love to just, offer my advice. Whether you take it or not is up to you, but I'll offer it, and I think a lot of times it's the problems that they have are fixable, but you got to know about them ahead of time. And I think what happens a lot of times is a project comes out, it's hyped, they make a mistake, and they get crucified for that mistake, and then they're never able to people don't give them the ability to build back from that, right?
Correct.
So how do you think this looks like in actuality? How are we honest with people without and honest enough where they know you're not just being
dick.
Or where you're almost being too they gotta know it's you can't just be well, I don't think this aspect of it's good enough. You gotta be this is shit, right?
Yeah.
But how do you do that in a productive way? Is it one-on-one conversations, or what do you think that looks like?
It's a mixture of just everything. I think that Hacker House is an asset for this. Twitter Space is an asset for this. This podcast is an asset. It's kind of like, you know, there's that old saying, it's like, show me one part, show me every part. And that's the way it is. I think we all have to toe the line. We all have to like be like, okay, I'm going to make sure that I participate and I do my best to make sure that, okay, if I know this person did this, or I know if this is best, or is that, you know, seen this before, it's not going to work, that we just don't, you know, pump something up because we want to feel involved. Or because, you know, oh, you're like, hey, you know what? If I tweet about this, it's an engagement farm, even though I know it's a shitty project and a shitty idea, and maybe it'll pump my back because it'll give me a couple whitelists for it. It's a greed game. We've just created this greed game, and that's why, like, you know, it's the Wild West. I was gonna say the unregulated word, but
yeah,
it's the Wild West.
Yeah, it definitely is. And I think that the way to, in my opinion, the way to fix that is we need less projects minting, and when a project does mint, it needs to be like super, super well thought out. And like, you know, I say to people all the time, if you're going to mint a project, like you should reach out to other project founders and get their thoughts ahead of time. Cause I think there's a unique perspective that they have that may allow you to, you know, avoid some of the mistakes that you were going to make. Right. Mm-hmm. And I think that like, there's a lot of people who have great intentions, but the moment, you know how it is, the moment a project mints, if it goes below mint price, the FUD is written in, right? Like the tweets are writing themselves at that moment, right? And so it's really hard for a project to go below mint and then rally back from there because people are so ready to shit on it, right? So, and that's where I think, once again, it's, you've got to rally your community to want to help give you solutions. Because, you know, that to me is my favorite part about the NFT space, is that we have all these people who are now invested into what you're doing. So they should want it, in theory, to succeed, right? Correct. So we've got to provide, I guess, better feedback mechanisms for people to give advice on truly how to grow this and where to take it and things like that. But I think the other part is, too, you got to ask yourself, does this project even have the ability to grow?
Yeah, exactly. We need to be more hypercritical. And it's like, we'll sit here and we'll talk about like the whole, like, oh, it's going to drop below mint price after post mint. It could get really bad. There's FUD. But how many projects will mint in the next 30 days knowing this and knowing all the different game mechanics, ideas, products, metas, whatever we want to call it, that could stop that. And they won't pre-plan. They won't do it.
So why do you think a project like Mad Lads did very well? Because that's the last Solana mint that I can remember in a long time that has not only gone far past mint price, but has held there. Why do you think that is?
Truthfully, it was a very highly choreographed Web2-like product release. They covered all their bases. They made sure that they had their community that they had already been building for a little bit. It's like weird. I always have this conspiracy that if they would have done it the other way around, it might be different. And Mad Lads might have a higher floor price, because when a platform releases an NFT, it's kind of corny, but when an NFT releases a platform, it's gold. ABC hate swap. They ran to like 250. And it's all perspective. But it was a highly executed plan that was months in the making. They covered all their bases. They covered their KOLs, their influencers, their hype tweets, their threads. You know, they leaked everything. They did their content marketing correctly. It was a flawless, like, you know, it was a masterclass of releasing an NFT. That's what it really was. Post NFT, totally different story. This is, again, going back to DeGods, and I'm not even a holder, to be completely honest with you, but it takes a lot. If you're a one-trick pony, it's easy to do it once, but can you do it again? Can you come back and go, okay, here we go. Another masterpiece is coming. It's very hard. But Mad Lads, yes, same thing as OK Bears. You know, they executed correctly using everything they knew they needed to do in that time. And I'm a very big believer in things that are a moment in time. Bored Ape Yacht Club, moment in time. Mad Lads, moment in time. Until you become a brand.
Yeah, fair. Okay. So what do you want to see? What would you like to see projects do differently moving forward?
Focus on product over profit. Like, too many people care about, if you come to me, you say, it's too high of a mint price, you don't believe in your product. Like, is the product good? Are you going to tell a story? Is the experience going to be incredible? Is this going to change the game? Is it going to blow people's minds? Because if it did all that and you poured your blood, sweat, and tears into it, and you're like, this is the greatest thing that this ecosystem is going to see in a long time, you would have no problem charging more. So immediately when people are like, I don't know if this price is too much, I'm like, dude, you got to work on your product, bro. Because Ferrari has no problem charging $250K for their cars because they know what you're getting. And that's, I think, the biggest problem is I think there's a lot of focus on how I can make a bag, what's going to keep runway up, what's going to keep us alive. And if you just focus on creating great experiences and great products within this little thing we call NFTs, I think you'll be just fine.
And so does that mean to you having like a plan for like the 6 months after mint, or what is like, I guess, how long do you think they have to have things thought out for? Because also this space moves really quick, right?
Very quick.
So is this something where you think they should have a game plan for like how you're going to keep your project relevant for like 3 months, or like, because a lot of it's thinking on your toes once, like, you know, if you told somebody at the beginning of the year, hey, what's your strategy for this? Like, let's say they were minting in early January, right? Well, then Bitcoin ordinals came out, and like we also went through like shitcoin season and stuff like that. Those are some things that are hard to predict, right? Because like no one saw that really coming, right? Mm-hmm. So how do you, what do you think they need to have game plan for, and like what do you think that is, that like, because social relevance is the biggest part of it, right? Absolutely. Like if you're not relevant, then the floor price drops because people lose interest, right? And they sell. So how do you think you can like account for a game plan while also being flexible with like all the crazy shit that's happening on a regular basis in this space that you can't really expect?
Well, you need a game plan, but you need to be able to pivot at any given moment. You have to be on your toes because you're operating like a startup. You got to be like, okay, here's what we want to do. Here's what we're afraid to do. And here's what might go wrong. Go. And that's just basically the game plan. You have to be ready to just act. Ordinals come out, boom, what are we doing? How are we going to do this? How long is it going to take? How many people do you need to get on that team? How long is ARC going to take? And when can we release? Someone reach out to Magic Eden, let's get a mint going. Like, you got to just move. You can't hesitate, and you have to move quick. And when it comes to game plan, it's like, okay, I always try to reference as much as possible. Like Elon says, your 10-year plan needs to be 6 months. That's just basically in the business world going, okay, look at social. For someone to digest this easily, it went from Instagram and YouTube videos to TikTok. Quick. Okay, what should you do? Take Artifact, Yuga, and the Gods, take their entire roadmap, put it on a board, write out how long it took them, and then 10x that the other way. If it took them 1 year, how can we do it in 1 month? That's what you need to do. And that's literally it. Is you need to like figure out what the good guys are doing. The same way Kobe looked at MJ and LeBron looked at Kobe. Understand their game plan. Figure out how your vision, your product fits into that game plan, and just copy paste it. And along the way, you're going to find your new ways as you grow. But you need to do that, and you got to learn how to do it quick, because that's the formula to what people like. These guys ahead of us, they're just building the recipe. And as we grow, we need to just iterate on that recipe, but we need to start with the exact recipe. It's a blueprint. It's a science. And I love when people try to, I always say the word cute. Like, people try to get cute and be like, oh, I'm going to do it my way. It's like, why? Cars have 4 wheels. Don't try to make them have 3. Like, just do it the way everyone's always done it. Don't reinvent the wheel. But when you become Himothy, or that brand, then you can reiterate, because now the only way you become that brand is by working your way to the front of the line. And once you get to the front of the line, now you're setting the trend.
Okay, that's fair. Yeah, I can't really rebuttal on that. So we've talked a lot about what project founders should be doing different. What about people who are just in the space in general? Like, I think there's obviously a lot of people who are on the timeline right now, and the timeline's sensitive. We're in a bear market, and people are sensitive in a bear market because it's easy to lose money during times like this. And so, what would if you were addressing, the entire ecosystem from the consumer side of things, what would you say to them?
They're lucky right now, because now we're sitting at a place where there is enough history and there's enough social proof and social history. They can do more homework and actually get more information that we could have done 2 years ago. I didn't know what SMB was or who owned Thugbirds, and it was all aliases, or it was all people behind an Instagram profile or Twitter profile. Now you can do extensive research and go, okay, my favorite KOL or influencer is pumping this projects. How right have they been in the last 2 years? The same way we look at like Jim Cramer and we're like, Jim Cramer's been wrong 8 times in the last 12 months. They can now do extensive research and look into the individuals that they look up to or they take advice from and say, how much have they been really right? How many projects they pumped that went to zero? Like if they really pay attention, they have everything they need in front of them to make the best decisions possible. And once you dig into that, like let's just say, okay, you look into an influencer that's pumping something. If there's missing tweets or this is a new account, there's a reason for that. Don't try to like overthink things. Think with logic. Don't think with emotion. Don't buy things, do things because some one guy on the internet's telling you because you like him. That's emotional. Let's get logical. That's probably my best piece of advice is get logical. Don't think emotional. Don't believe everything you read. And I'm saying this not because anything, but like just because a platform exists, and I'll use like the most, the ones we know the most, like Hello Moon or Soul Sniper or Solana Floor. Do your research. Just because they say that's the most socially trended one, does that make it real? Like we have problems, like Andrew Tate talks about that. We have problems with Instagram and Twitter pumping false information in the world. All these platforms, all these projects, they're just run by normal people like me or you. They can lie, they can be right, they can be wrong. You just can't believe everything you read. You have to become, if you're going to participate in this space, you have to become educated. Like who would make a move? And if I would say, hey, walk someone on the street, would you make an uneducated move? 99% of people would say no, but then go do it. So, I think for the consumers, they're lucky. They have everything they need in front of them at this point. Whereas a year ago, we had half the shit we do. And a year and a half, 2 years ago, we had literally nothing. There was Soul Analysis, and there was 25 projects on it on Solana.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think the thing I would say to anybody who's been in the space for a second or people who are new or whatever, but mostly people who have been in the space for a second, go look at like the projects that you've bought in the last year and a half, 2 years, however long you've been in the space. Go look back at all the projects that you bought previously and ask yourself, why did I buy that? And what was my thesis at the moment, right? And learn from that, right? Like yes. I've made a ton of terrible decisions in the last year and a half, 2 years, right? But I oftentimes will go back and look and go, okay, in hindsight, and not even was there information I didn't know at the time, but just more of like, okay, now knowing what I know now, what could I have seen then that was dead obvious that I just overlooked, right? And I try to learn from that so that moving forward, I can be like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to buy this or I'm going to sell this or whatever because now I know better. Now I know that this is a red blinking sign saying buy or this is a red blinking sign saying sell. And like, I have to pay attention to those things because if I'm here for 2 years and I've never learned, then like, what am I doing here, right? And I think a lot of times people, and this is something that's common on the timeline, is you see a lot of people who are very angry, right? Like, I can't believe this happened. I can't believe this. I can't believe my bags are down on this, yada, yada, yada. You do need to take accountability for your own purchases, right? No one put a gun to your head and made you buy that 100%. Shit, right? So ask yourself, why did I buy that? And did I just fuck up? And if you fucked up, own it. And I think that's part of the issue is like it goes back to what you said earlier. It's the truth thing. You need to be true to yourself too. Like if you're going to be true to other people about what they could be doing better in the space, you also need to be true to yourself. What are you not doing right? Or what have you, are you really learning? You say you're learning, but are you learning? Are your actions proving that you're still learning? And I think it's being that honest with yourself is an important aspect. Bear markets are tough. There's a reason why most people leave during a bear market. It's mentally taxing. Mm-hmm. So go touch grass, go do things outside the space. Doesn't mean don't stay here and enjoy it, but, refresh a little bit from time to time and learn. Keep learning. That's how you're going to be the best trader in the next bull market. And the person who's new to the next bull, they're going to fuck up and then they're going to need to learn during the next bear, but you're going to know during that time, right? Mm-hmm. So if you stay here
and you keep learning and you keep reflecting and analyzing your decisions, you're going to be in the best position possible when we get into the next bull, right?
Yes. Oh my God. And speaking of bull and bear, I have to mention this.
Yeah.
So funny the other day. We were about to launch something and someone was like, oh man, like wouldn't it have been great if this was like the bull market when we were launching this? And I was talking about the blueprint of great projects. And I was like, every great project rises from the dirt. Why would I ever want to launch in a bull? I want to launch in a bear. Because the best projects in the world are the ones that turn it from bear to bull.
Yeah.
Like this is prime. So if anyone is listening, you're going to find the winners now. You're going to find like the people that are going to lead us into the next bull and the projects and the ideas and the concepts. It's going to happen right now. And it sounds cliche, but when someone asked me that the other day, they're like, oh man, I wish this was better times and Solana was higher. And I was like, no, man, this is perfect.
Oh yeah. I mean, if you're not dollar cost averaging right now, if you're not like looking at the projects that are down, but like looking at them and saying, these are some smart people, like, you know, I'm going to stack up during times like this. Like, man, that is when you want to see people who are great traders, that's what they do. You know,
Yeah.
they during times like this, when okay, let's go back 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, when SEC announces they're suing Binance and Coinbase and everybody who has a pulse. During that time, the timeline was shitting their pants. I was texting you during that, right?
Yeah.
And I said to you during that time, I was like, man, like, you know, in a few days, like everybody will be good and the market will recover, and like, you know, and sure enough,
Here we are.
what has happened? You know, Bitcoin is up to whatever it's at, like almost 31K right now, right?
Crazy.
And it's like, you know, but it's all perception, right? Because if you told somebody 2 weeks ago that we'd be at 31K right now, they'd be like, holy shit, that's great. Good.
There's like 5 people out there that I could say that to right now. It's like,
Right.
yo, it's going to go a little bit. They're like,
Yeah. And then at the same time, if you told somebody when we were at 64K that we're going to be down to 31K, they'd be like, well, you know, so it's all perception, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like 31K is great compared to where we were a few weeks ago, compared to where we were in December, you know, and so it's like, and then 31K is not going to be considered shit compared to where we may be in 2025 or, you know, whatever, right?
I always say it doesn't make sense until it makes sense.
Yeah, that's facts. That's facts. So, okay, so I want to start diving into everything that you guys are doing with Cupcake and all of that. But for people who are new to Cupcake, aren't familiar, haven't been to one of the events that has been integrating Cupcake, give me like the 30-second elevator pitch. What is Cupcake and what is your role with Cupcake?
Yes. So I'm the CEO of Cupcake at the moment. I jumped in the role in January, beginning of this year. Cupcake originally was an NFC integration company where we would enable better products or experiences for NFT companies through NFC tags. Most known for the Kaleno stuff we've done with their packs. Open up the pack, there's a card, NFC tag, you claim your NFT. That is what most people know Cupcake as. As of late, we've been very much focused since the beginning of the year on the phygital meta. We are making a strong pivot into being a phygital company. We like to say everything phygital. And our goal now is to build a phygital marketplace and support the next wave of creators that are trying to create phygital goods, which I think will have the biggest impact on Web2 from our space, is the tangible, something you can hold. And I always say the Lamborghini in GTA will never feel like the Lamborghini down Sunset.
Facts. Okay, so for somebody who's not as familiar with Phygital, can you explain briefly what Phygital is and
So glad you
and any
asked me
great
this.
examples of Phygital?
I think I'm going to actually, this is hopefully going to become the wiki of Phygital. A lot of people, I think I Phygital messed up. My thing is 1 + 1 = 1 is Phygital. What I mean by that is that the true definition of a phygital item is when you take one physical asset and one digital asset and combine them to make one phygital asset. They are something that exists in the physical realm and the digital realm, but just like the way you look in the mirror, it's not a different you, it's the same you, just the mirror gives you a different feedback. That's what phygital is.
Fair.
Two things that exist on two sides that are the exact same thing, and they're married together forever.
Okay, so when you talk about a Phygital marketplace, what does that look like?
Ooh, this is another way, the best way to explain it. If OpenSea and StockX had a baby. Because the big component with Phygital is, okay, we have an easy way, obviously through NFTs, to verify things digitally and trade them. But now there's a physical component to it because we have physical items. So we're setting up a marketplace and setting up shop to be able to actually, for instance, you go to DNYC, you get the duffel bag, there's the NFC tag on it. For someone like you to actually move secondary on that, you would need someone to verify the real bag and the NFC tag. That's what we're building. We want to be a company that can look at DeGod and say, okay, what's the manufacturing? What's the measurement? What's all the stats for the physical bag? And then, hey, send us a sheet of all the NFC tags we can verify so people can trade them. We have a marketplace. You upload it. You sell it to someone. You send it to us. We verify both. Send it out.
That's dope. That's dope. I super dig that. Yeah, because I think, when people talk about that sort of tech, a lot of it is like, well, how is it going to look in actuality, right? Like when you talk about, verifying a good on the blockchain and things like that. Like I think a lot of people I've had conversations with people who are trying to figure that out. So it sounds like you guys are trying to solve that, right? Or not trying. You guys are solving it.
I mean, we are very blessed. The people, my bosses, they invented the candy machine. They invented, the old candy machine. And Metaplex and all the NFT standards today. They helped DA get off the ground. They have SMBF ground. They've played a part in everything, really 95% of what's important in Solana. They've played a part in from a technical standpoint. They've developed, smart contracts and ideas. One's called a hot potato of being able to permanently marry a physical item to a digital item and then have that item only be able to expose to a certain interface. So you can only trade it, sell it, buy it in one interface, one marketplace. Now, you would say, okay, like, is that to monopolize the business? No, it's to keep it safe for now and kind of just become the one-stop shop for phygital goods. But we figured out a way, we've mastered. God, Tony Robbins has this thing with the guy from Lululemon that just came out. It's incredible on like how to win. And he talks about mastering all the verticals. And we've mastered the NFC stuff. We've mastered the smart contracts going into the NFC. We've worked on physical goods. I have a background in branding and building startups, and just we're starting to nail our verticals. And it's so funny. It's like this space, and why I say there's so much opportunity for anyone that wants to create something Web3 that's watching this. You need to do it, because guess what? It's child's play right now. I am so bullish on our phygital marketplace. One of the reasons I tell people is because the minute I bring up IRL operations to anyone, they go, wait, so you're actually going to have IRL operations and touch things? I'm like, yeah, crazy, right? It's a business. It's like crazy. People don't want to do things in this space. Everyone just wants to print 20,000 JPEGs and make $4 to $5 million and be like, dude, we're rich. I think that we're just putting the time and the effort, and we have this thing, and hopefully in September we've been talking to a variety of partners, because Klano's thinking phygital, Scum's thinking phygital, Azuki's thinking phygital, a kid called Beast is already thinking phygital. Everyone's moving this way, and without somewhere to trade these items, it's a hobby. If we can't trade them, it's a hobby. Put it on a shelf, it's as good as a McDonald's toy 25 years ago. But as we know from McDonald's toys, you can now trade those. If they're Cactus Jack, and you can put them on StockX. Without a healthy secondary, I've always been a big believer in phygital. I have a lot of concepts here, but without a healthy secondary market, the primary market is not proven. Like, the Web2 companies are going to move according to the secondary market, because they know, okay, like, that created demand. We should now provide a product to, fulfill more of that demand on the secondary. Because I was actually talking to one of the co-founders of Multicoin. He's like, yeah, like, we're working on stuff like this because, StockX, like, well, no, not StockX, but like Nike and Louis Vuitton, like, we're pitching them on the royalty thing. Like, they could do NFTs and have royalty. I'm like, dude, what do you mean? They could subpoena StockX tomorrow and say, how much of our shit just went through your platform? Give us a fee. Why they don't? Because the most valuable client or customer to Nike and Supreme is the one walking through their door. That's all they care about. Everyone else that's buying their stuff on secondary, they're like, cool. You could buy it fake, you could buy it real, they don't care. And a lot of people go, wait, we got to make sure it's real. Think about the first thing. They only care about the person that's walking through their door. That's guaranteed real. They don't care about secondary. What Louis Vuitton cares about with phygital is being able to add an NFC tag to a pocketbook and make it go from $3,000 to $7,000 without any additional manufacturing, without any additional cost of goods. Just an NFC tag. And that's why Artifact was bought by Nike. Because it was value add for adding a little trinket, little NFC tag. There's no royalties or like authenticity play because the big brands don't really have that problem.
Hey, I'm right there with you. I think this is super dope. And then do you think, okay, so here would be, I guess, if I'm playing devil's advocate.
Love it.
My thing would be when it comes to some of these like bigger brands that have like a big secondary sales on StockX and things like that. Those are huge like businesses that have been around and brands that have been around for a decade or are actively like repped by, Cactus Jack, actively repped by Travis Scott, right?
Yes.
Like stuff like that, right? So what do we need to see happen for like an NFT project to have interest by people who know nothing about the NFT aspect of it, right? Like, how does it, obviously we had everything that happened with Pudgy Penguins in the last month, and like that was really cool to see a lot of people going and buying these penguins and these toys that their kids are going to be able to play with and stuff like that, right? There's going to be, if that continues to grow, if there's a constant supply that's readily available because they sold out within like 24 or 48 hours, if there's a constant supply and people are just going on to Amazon and they're buying their nephew a gift or a niece a gift, whatever, and they see a Pudgy Penguin on there and they're like, this looks cute, and they buy it. And then there's also like, let's say they do get to the point where they have active drops on there and then they sell out and then people go and, and let's say they're selling them on your marketplace, right? Yeah. So what do we need to do to have, I guess, like that, a larger community come into play? Like, because currently a lot of times we're all selling to the same people. And I think while that's great during a bull market, it's hard during a bear because there's only so many people that are here and there are people who fall off and things like that. So how do we make this exciting enough where people that have know nothing about NFTs are like, they're just building really cool products that I want, and so I'm going to buy it, and then they learn about the digital versions and everything like that, and they start going, okay, hey, let me dive in further to it.
Same thing as Top Shot. Good products in our ecosystem create volume, a lot of volume. A lot of volume creates attention and noise. What does that attention and noise bring? Normies. Like, no one started trading Top Shot that was a sports fan until all the degens had their slim pickings. They're like, yeah, now all the real John Moran fans come in and buy shit for 25 grand. Because we are, like I said, that's why I said it's very important for us to all be honest. It's the degens and the communities that are going to actually win this war. And like, even when we were building the concept of the digital marketplace, like, just like I said, that blueprint, I'm thinking of every single component. And it's like, it's on the NFT projects within the ecosystems now to actually carry this meta. Because, the way we win this is that attention war, and it's that Louis Vuitton and Nike don't need royalties. But guess who does? Every single NFT project to survive. And they're going to be the ones that start that are spark to the flame. And so we built it, like, even when building the digital marketplace, like, okay, if these projects' true goal is royalties, let's build a system in which the launchpad of a digital marketplace is actually all just the digital NFTs that are connected to vaulted physical goods. So the degens can trade. And when they want to take ownership of their physical item, they can claim it. And if the degens want to speculate, they can speculate. The problem with an NFT project going straight to physical is you ruin the magic of NFTs, which is post-mint volume. It's everything. Most NFT projects, most of the great ones, they double the revenue post-mint. It's where they get all their attention. If you launch a digital good and it's straight from physical to in your hand, there's no possibility for volume, and it ruins authenticity because we're not sure now. Now there's a delay loop. There's the feedback loop slow. Now you got to send it to me. I got to verify. Then you send it. Whereas if, let's just say Pudgy Penguin's like, hey, we're going to go to Cupcake Digital Marketplace. I'm going to take ownership of all the plushies they're dropping. Then we're going to just strictly release the NFTs that match every plushie one-to-one. Degens can mint, collectors can mint. Now they're trading. Floor price is going. There's volume, there's royalties. Then anyone that wants to, put it on their nightstand can claim, and then we'll ship it to them. But we got to let the degens eat. So it's important. A lot of people don't want to hear that. And the flippers and all, they're an important part of the ecosystem. The parasites and the cockroaches have a life. Not saying that they are those, but you look at Earth. Everything's one-to-one. Every part of this ecosystem matters. And I think that if everyone realized that, they would play a bigger role rather than just my bags are down.
So how much do you pay attention to like what eBay's doing? Because for example, because I've been a big sports trading card
Yes.
guy since like the womb basically, and they recently started doing the vault where you can buy a card on eBay and then they basically will just hold on to it for you.
Yes.
And then if you want to relist it, and so for example, the other day, one of my buddies called me and he's like, "Hey, I think this dude is going to get called up for the Mets soon. You should go buy one of his without getting too technical into it, his first Bowman, which is his like most valuable card, right?"
Yes.
And so I was like, okay, cool. I'm going to buy that and I'm going to hold it into the vault, right? Because the alternative is I have them ship it to me. But then in order for that to happen, the person who owns the card has to ship it to eBay. eBay then ships it to a verification. If it's over $250, they verify it from there. So it goes from the holder of the card to eBay to the verification to me. Well, that's like a 2-week process, right?
Yep.
So if the guy gets called up in the next 2 weeks, then I don't have the ability to sell it during that time. I'm just sitting there holding my dick, right?
Yep.
So during that instance, if you hold it in the vault, then basically all that needs to happen is the guy who holds it ships it to eBay verifies it, and then they hold it there. Now it skips the process of having to go to me and then me having to send it back to eBay,
Correct.
right? So you skip all that part, you keep it in the vault. That allows me to degen play a little bit, which was one of my biggest gripes about the trading card world, is that I didn't have the ability to degen play, and I like that. And so that's something. So do you pay attention to kind of, because eBay's a business?
I'm a huge sports card guy. I love eBay. Crazy that I give eBay the award for the longest website to not change its interface and still be alive.
Yeah, facts.
It's like Windows 98.
It really is.
Like it's like a time capsule. Every time you click on eBay, you're like, this is still the same.
Yep, 100%.
But yeah, I'm big in that. I was just looking at all the Jokic rookie cards as this shit was coming into the playoffs because I was like, this dude's a beast. It's crazy they haven't gone up as much because he's just not as culturally as relevant, but that's a whole different story.
Yeah.
But I'm very much in tune with that arena. It's why I will credit one of the guys on our team, Jake. He's the one who actually brought the vault mechanism to the table. And imagine if things just started. That was the start of the consumer process and not a middleman. That's what we're looking at, is instead of taking assets that already exist and needing to vault them, what if things started in the vault? What if an NFT mint just started from the vault? Now you can degen from the minute that thing's hot off the press. And if you want to collect it, you could collect it, put it on your shelf. And we're even going to have the ability for the few collectors that if you do want to relist it, you send it back to us, we revault it, and it's that same process as eBay, and you can sell. But for the sake of NFTs, we need to start these things in the vault in order for degens to do what they do. And now, just like Top Shot, there's actually physical asset attached to it. There's more meat on the bone here. And I think that Phygital, why I'm so bullish on it, is Phygital is a barrier to entry that will save this ecosystem and every NFT ecosystem. Because the bullshitters don't want to make physical products. They just want to like Ponzi art out from some dude in Indonesia and pump it on the internet. Physical takes time, attention to detail, and you have to have a team. You have to strategize, manufacturing, design. It takes a lot of effort. The people that want to do Phygital are the ones that really want to change this place. Not only, but within the NFT product space, at least. I mean, you see everyone doing it now.
Okay, can I play devil's advocate?
Yes.
Okay, so my one question would be, so we'll just keep using the Pudgy example. So Pudgy, by putting their products out on Amazon, allowed. I'm gonna cut that part out. I'm gonna say it again because I want to have a clean edit on that. So Pudgy putting their project. I can't even speak. Pudgy putting their product. Oh my God,
it's like
Marc.
Peter Piper.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, I'm going to say this one more time. I got this. Okay, so Pudgy Penguins putting their products out on eBay. Wow, holy shit, Marc. You're watching.
It's all right.
You're watching me have a brain fart live on the podcast. I'm keeping all of this in here. Okay, so Pudgy putting their products out on Amazon allowed people who already have an Amazon account to go on there, buy their penguin, and to get it shipped automatically to their place. Easy. They didn't have to input credit card information. It's already done. It's on there. They're good to go, right? You also probably had a few people that probably bought those because they were on Amazon randomly on that day and saw, hey, there's this trending item. It's a kid's toy. It's a penguin. It looks cute. Cool, I'm going to buy it, right? Mm-hmm. So you attract some normies without them even realizing they're buying something that's attributed to an NFT collection. At the same time, you also Amazon's going to get that love and respect from like, major, I guess, like normal media outlets that are going to go, hey, this NFT project just put all these penguins on Amazon. They sold out in 2 days. They made millions, yada, yada, yada. Like, they're going to look at that and go, okay, that's a great article, and they're going to write that up, and it's going to write itself. So what would you guys need to do with your marketplace to not only have Pudgy say, hey, it makes more sense for us to put them out via you guys? Now, obviously, I get on Amazon, they don't get that secondary marketplace. I get that aspect. But there's also, they're not going to get the normies who are going to buy them on your marketplace right away, right? Correct. Unless you guys have some sort of collaboration, like, or multiple collaborations with bigger Web2 businesses that say, hey, we're going to put our products out on your marketplace first, similar to, I guess, like, I don't know how much you've studied, like, how did StockX initially get their first people to sell on StockX via selling on eBay, which people had done traditionally beforehand. So how much do you pay attention to that, and how do you attract those?
I was huge on StockX. In the beginning, StockX didn't have the baseball cards, didn't have like 75% of the shit they have. The thing about StockX, I think it was just really a lot of word of mouth, was the fact that the need for authenticity in sneakers was so clear as day. Like, they had an open window. It's like, oh, I wish I was older. They had a clear window, and that's not an excuse. I'm just saying that out loud to anyone out there. But they had a clear window, an opportunity to build something that would impact an industry where there was a clear demand for authenticity of sneakers. Now, now to the first part, like Pudgy, I questioned using Amazon as a platform. Awesome move. It's like one of those things on Twitter where it's like, if you get any sort of action outside of the Web3 snow globe, they're going to eat it up. You're going to own the timeline that day. But I question the fact that, just like thinking like a Web2 brand, Web3 has kind of like tricked us. And it's like, well, if you are working at a Web2 company and you're a growth marketer, you're saying, the customer that does not know about my product is the least valuable customer on the market. You want to sell, your best customer is your repeat customer and the people that know who you are. And the second best customer to your repeat customer is the person that's a maybe, your maybe customer. Like Jordan Belfort says, never sell a no. It's a waste of time. And the reason is that's like, in order to get to be the brands that we want to be, like Supreme or Louis Vuitton, they've bursted through the glass ceiling of target demographic. Everyone wants Louis Vuitton. Everyone wants a Lamborghini. Of course, people are like, he's a monk. Like, remember at Wolf of Wall Street, he's like, what about monks? Monks don't want money. He's like, are you kidding me? But if you could, the goal is to get there, and your best bet is with the people that love and support your brand. Brands like Supreme did not grow selling to people that didn't know the brand. They fed into the same target consumer that ate up their brand for a decade and was basically a free brand ambassador. Actually, a brand ambassador that paid to be one. That's who you want to really focus on. A normie, that penguin's going to end up under the bed. A brand ambassador, that thing's in a glass case above the mantle. That's the people you want, because guess what? Now when someone walks into a house, a normie, the penguin's under the bed. A fan, it's on the mantle. That is a precedent. They're setting your brand ambassadors. This is the way the DGOTS community works. You guys set the tone. Frank does the best job he can to make sure that you guys have as much ammunition to set the best tone possible. He wants to make you guys proud of the shit you wear. That's what Pudgy needs to do. Amazon, if you can run the risk of something ending up under some kid's bed, don't do it. Elevated products, elevated process, and like think, okay, like, how do I get to be a Supreme? How I think that, again, it's analyzing the blueprint and thinking like a consumer and a founder at the same time.
So do you guys plan on, with that, and that all makes perfect sense, do you guys plan on then pushing for some of these bigger Web2 businesses to also, because that would also, I guess, like, educate people over time. If let's say there's some big Web2 company that puts out products on physical projects, I really can't speak today, puts out physical, holy shit.
It's the P's.
It is. It's the P's that are
I'm just used to it because I've been saying digital for the last year.
Digital throws me off. Okay, so if you're pitching to a Web2 business and saying, hey, put your digital products on our website, right? they're most likely then, if somebody, let's say, goes, okay, I want to buy that, and they come onto your website, they see these, and then they go, oh, what are these other products that are on here? And they see a Pudgy, they see whatever else is on there, something with Kleino or whatever, right? That's one way of also educating people, right? Because they see that and they go, okay, I got to learn more. I got to dive into that, figure out what that is, right? So is that something that you guys are going to push to do, or do you think it's going to build out from Web3 businesses, or are you also going to try to bring in the Web2 businesses to kind of bring some attention to the website that you otherwise wouldn't be getting from Web3?
Well, I'm leaning on the Web3 brands.
Okay.
Because as Web3 brands scale and become just cool, your average consumer doesn't really look at like the basis of what makes something cool. But if it's cool, like no one knows that Supreme's a skateboard brand. People are like, what? It's a skateboard brand? Yeah, it's a skateboard brand. But they don't care. They just know it's cool. Just like someday no one's going to know that Pudgy or D-Gods is an NFT project. They're just going to be like, oh, it's cool. So that's what, like, fundamentally we're going to rely on the Web3 brands to be as cool as possible, rely on great founders to create great products, because that's how platforms grow. Like YouTube is only as powerful as creators, and that's the way we're going to look at our marketplace. We're only going to be as powerful as the creators and brands we have on there. And if they become cool, they'll burst through the glass ceiling, they'll create attention, and the old heads, the Louis Vuittons, the Balenciaga, wherever you see is luxury, they always just follow the cool. They're going to come out and be like, okay, let's join them, let's do it. And now we have normies all in one spot participating, and they don't even know they're normies. I'm not a sneakerhead, but I'm on StockX buying sneakers. I don't consider myself a sneakerhead. To a sneakerhead of 5 years ago, I'm a normie. Or to a baseball card collector, I'm a normie. But I got my KD and Giannis rookie cards. I got my Mischief Gobstoppers and Big Red Boots. And I'm technically the normie they won. But I didn't have to join them. It became a part of culture. It became a part of life and something I saw on the internet. And I think that's the adoption curve that everyone's missing, is we got to focus on being so cool that who you are doesn't matter. It's like, it's how a lot of different prejudices or separation between, whether it's politics, state, humanity, that's how these things disappear, is when someone becomes so cool, they see through the bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, that's facts. That's facts. I mean, it's like, yeah, you make something so, and the word cool is
so generic, but it's like, it's culture.
It really is. You make something so relevant then that people can't avoid it, right? And like that would be the big, like the red boots that you mentioned from Mischief, right? It's like, those were, if you were on the internet, whatever that was, like probably like a month ago, right? Those were everywhere you looked on the internet, right? They truly broke the internet for a day and a half. And there's probably some people who are watching this right now that are like, I don't even know what is that. And I'm going to put a photo right here, boom, and you're going to see that and you're going to know what I'm talking about. Because if you were anywhere on the internet, you saw easily like 2 weeks straight, nonstop, right? And so, yeah, if you build something so, impossible to avoid, then like people have no choice. They're going to see it. It's almost like I see, Pudgy Penguins and Kleino and some of these doing almost like what Elf on a Shelf did, right? Like, I don't have a kid, but I know what Elf on a Shelf is, because everywhere you saw memes, you saw content of kids with their Elf on a Shelf, right? Every holiday you see it again. And it's that probably cost them 10 cents to make. Mm-hmm. And it breaks the internet every Christmas, because there's always some kid posting their Elf on a Shelf. There's memes with Elf on a Shelf. So it attracts the different people. You got the families that are like, this is adorable content. And then you got the memers who make funny shit out of it, right? And so, if Pudgy can go and do that same thing of making, you're going to be able to make products that like are so impossible to avoid, because they're going to become memes that will come up with them too, that attract the older demographic. And then you have the families that are like, this is a cute toy for my kids, right? Boom.
Kids just want what they see online. Yeah. Every 6-year-old in this country, 6 to 10-year-old wants Big Red Boots. They have no clue why.
100%.
They're always like, I want to be in them. I see them on the internet. My friends have them. Jimmy's getting them for Christmas. And they're like, that's what it is.
Yeah.
And that's how these things start. And
that's Crocs to me, for example.
yeah,
I like
silly bands.
Yeah.
Crocs.
Well, Crocs
Pet Rock was the original.
Crocs came out when we were probably 10, I feel like.
Oh my God.
And
I don't even remember.
But Crocs were looked at as like they were embarrassing back then,
Yep.
right? And now Crocs are considered cool.
They
And
worked so hard on that too.
They did. They
worked
stayed
so hard.
consistent.
They're
Crocs
like, we're
was
doing
mad
Post Malone.
consistent.
They're like, this guy's crazy, but I like it.
Yeah. And but when you think about it, like when Crocs first came out, it's like who they attracted had nothing to do with cool, but then they kept pushing. They kept pushing. And now Crocs are like, I mean, yeah, I could rock Crocs now and people will be like, those are dope. Like, where'd you get those? Yada, yada, yada. If you rock Crocs to high school or middle school or whatever, when I was in middle school or high school, you were getting bullied. You were getting stuffed in a locker. But they made it impossible to avoid. And that's the same shit that we can do with NFTs. There are people who are going to look at NFTs right now and say, this is stupid. What you guys are building is stupid. But if we just stay consistent and focus on finding that niche, you're going to find it. But you have to stay consistent with it. And that's the other thing. I think a lot of times people just kind of fall off, and it's like the reality of it is if your scope is 6 months, like you got to think about how do we make this relevant 2 years from now, which means staying consistent for 2 years. And that's hard. That's really hard to do. It is hard to stay that long, right? But then you think about a brand like Crocs, and it's like they pushed for 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And they kept pushing and they kept pushing, and now anybody can rock Crocs at any moment in time. People go, that's dope.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Vans
is the same shit.
It's literally over Jordan. I mean, Jordan was actually cool.
Yeah,
From the beginning.
Jordan was cool from the beginning.
Yeah, but it's everything takes time. And I bet you if we were to sit here and be talking to the Crocs team, they would have a completely different, wild, off the wall story that involved ups, downs, almost failing, almost dying, almost giving up. And I think is one thing I have to say because it's changed. It might have been different 6 to 8 months ago and previously, but NFT projects are not the holders, and holders shouldn't even want it, because everything great in life is a bunch of people that trust a special select few people to do that job. That's how humanity is grown. I'm not going to build a camera. I trust Sony to do it. I don't want a Lamborghini. I want Lambo to do it. I don't want Louis Vuitton and bags and Nike sneakers. I trust them to do it. So trust your project and the leaders of the project to do what every great company has done forever and create and innovate and build. Because we were also talking about presidential stuff. The greatest DAO on earth. Everyone gets pissed every year about who the greatest DAO on earth puts into place. But you have to trust the creatives, the builders, the innovators, the visionaries to do it, or we wouldn't be here if we didn't. So it's very controversial, but I've heard Pudgy, Luca talk about a lot, but it's that was, I believe, how it needed to start. It needed to be a all for one, one for all, because that was the this is Sparta moment. But now we got to build the empire. And it's you need a figurehead. You need a Julius Caesar. You need a leader that's going to go, I'm going to be the name that shines bright, and this is the innovation that we're going to do. We're going to change the world. And the rest of the people got to believe in that. They can't try to have too much of a voice, because if you do have a voice and you want to have a voice in your NFT project, go do your own. That's what every other great creative's ever done. God, I hate the way this company's doing this. I'm going to do my own. And again, the cycle begins. But I think we need to start looking at NFT projects more like companies and hold to the standards of companies. And I think that'll fix a lot of different things.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree at all. So, okay, here's the other thing. I know we could go for 2 hours on this conversation. We could go for probably 3 hours.
Oh, yeah.
So we'll probably have to do another episode at some point. But so let's get into, so we talked about the digital marketplace. What else do you guys have going on at Cupcake? Is there going to be more NFC things that you guys are doing? Obviously people know you guys well for the Kaleno drops and some of the other drops that you guys have done using your cards and your NFT technology. Do you guys have anything else that's coming out soon? What have you learned, I guess, from the events too that you guys have done and some of these big I'm just going to keep using Kaleno as an example because that's worked beautifully. But what have you guys learned from that? And then what do you guys have coming out soon?
I'm glad you asked me about the Kaleno thing, because there's been something I've been a proponent of, and I came to this conclusion, very obvious conclusion, totally obvious. But when you're in the moment, you're in all these we're in this echo chamber, you don't realize it. But the concept or thought that I had come to, especially at B&J Studios, was it's not the tag. It's what's in the tag that matters. Just like when the Phil Knight with the Jordan thing was like, it's not the sneakers, it's who wears them. For Klano, I realized, especially with NFTs, and they were I loved working with them because they were able to like really help me prove the ideas that weren't really coming across at the studio. And it was that what is in that tag matters more than anything. And someone will walk 100 million miles to tap that tag if something in it matters. But if not, they wouldn't tap it if it was sitting right next to them. That's all that matters. So understanding that NFTs are the vehicle of attention marketing with our space, for the last like 8 to 12 months at Cupcake, we've been building a artifact-like brand for Solana. I think Artifact is one of the best NFT brands to exist, and I think they almost dipped too early. I feel like they were the prologue of the book on Fidgetal. I think that they proved a lot, but didn't prove enough. I think that, there's so much more to be done in the space. So we just been kind of following a North Star of, okay, I'm a big believer on last mover advantage. Like when I built Shagmag, that was the definition of last mover advantage. It was like I had waited till Colcer hit its peak within this echo chamber of online. I was like, okay, I know exactly what everyone needs. And that is kind of what we've done with this brand. It's actually called Candy Machine, but it's spelled different. It's CANDII space MASCHEEN. Has a very like European luxury vibe to it, but that's the goal. I want to build a brand that takes the concept of NFTs and shifts it to digital products and fidgetals. And I want to be a products company. I want to build the Nike Supreme of NFTs. No PFPs. That's fine. I'll leave that to the pros. I have no problem doing that. I'll be the first one to say it. I'm not going to do PFP. I'll leave that to Frank, Klano, Luke, and the boys. You guys are killers at it. I want to bring in a new meta of products and the way those products interact, the way they speak to the consumer, and the way that the consumer can play with them. I've been bullish on Apple Vision Pro, and it's probably something that everyone's beating to the ground, but I'm kind of getting ready for about 12 to 18 months, honestly, just because I knew like Meta was fucking up, and I knew Apple was just a matter of time before they stomped them out. But Candy Machine, the whole goal of Candy Machine is to be I really think in my mind, like along with like the Klanos and the other guys, I really think this product brand can do something different from Solana, because the bones of Solana are built for an artifact. A brand that's not focused on creating less, but creating more, and how that more impacts its end user and all the different game mechanics and smart contracts, from PNFTs to compressed NFTs, everything we could do on Solana, Artifact couldn't do, and they still put on a masterclass of NFTs. Now, after, like I said, being the last mover, I can now aggregate all this information, what's worked, what hasn't, what tech is out there, what tech is still yet to be built, and really kind of put it all into one melting pot and build this brand called Candy Machine. Be like, okay, this is going to be a product that changes the way that people think about NFTs forever. And it's because like we literally don't care. FUD, copy pasta, whatever it may be, it's just about, okay, let's think outside the box and let's just break shit. It sounds so fucking basic, but the roadmap is just, and I hate to say the word roadmap, and I don't like to speculate it because it's a product. And it's so beautiful what we put together. And I don't know. It's like a kid. I tell everyone I'm like a kid at a candy store or like Christmas. I want to show people, because it's not even about me. It's not even about money. It's not about anything. It's about showing people that can be different. Like I remember when we started Shag Mag and we did that, like 10 other girls started magazines. Because originally when I looked at Julia, I said, it's cool if you can do an OnlyFans. And OnlyFans wasn't even a thing then. It's even cooler if you can brand it, package it, and sell it to VCs and raise money for it. That's art. And that was the battle. It was like, like NFTs are products. I was fighting the same battle 3 years ago saying our magazine is not pornographic. Sounds crazy. But because of the way we packaged it, branded it, and sold it, it was art. We changed the perspective of like this entire content category. And for a moment in time, it had its thing. It's not around now for X, Y, and Z, but that's how you actually change the game. Is in order to be taken seriously, you have to put in the work and like line everything up and be like, look at this. This isn't fucking OnlyFans. This is a men's entertainment platform where Manscaped, Snoop Dogg, Jake Paul can all live in. And we have content, and we're going to talk about countercultural things. That's the way that like NFT culture and this whole ecosystem needs to think. But that's what we want to do. NFTs, that's that Motorola Nokia moment. And it's like, okay, what's the iPhone? It's like, flip the whole thing on its head and let it ride, but don't cut any corners. Don't try to make money. Really just say, this is going to be a full representation of who we are as a team, as peoples, as creators. And we're going to let the product, speak for itself.
So when's the product coming? When's it going to speak for itself?
August.
Okay. Delay or no delay?
No, shoot. I had this weird concept of I've been delaying actually since April, but I kind of a little sinister. And I like to give my team dates that don't really exist because we work harder.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'll be like, we got 6 weeks, 3 weeks out. I'm like, I pushed it 6 more weeks. We had 9 weeks. We have to run. And it's like, because then you see like that next 3 weeks, like, okay, cool. And I'm like, we had 6 weeks again. They're like, oh, we good. And they're like, why are we delaying? I'm not delaying. I'm just tricking you into becoming who you really need to be. You need to hustle. You need to go. You have to like pretend like you need to pretend like you're launching 6 weeks every 6 weeks. And then in 6 months, you'll have a masterpiece.
And that's because if you surround yourself with people who are goats are always the greatest in the fourth quarter, right?
Yep.
So it's, you see that all the time with guys who are, the superstars. They could be shit first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. They're turning it on, right? And I fundamentally believe in that mindset. There's actually something I've chatted with Frank about plenty of times is that he'll show me where art has been for like Dead Gods or where it was for Utes and stuff like that. And he'll show me where it was like 2 or 3 days before the release of it. And he'll be like, look at this trait, look what it became, right? In like 2 to 3 days before it came out. And I'm like, it's always mind blowing to me. And that's why I always say to people, I'm like, I don't even really have alpha from him because it always changes right afterwards, right? Like
Keyword change.
Yeah, whatever.
We talked about that earlier.
Yeah, whatever he shows me, it always changes because he'll look at it and go, okay, I showed Marc, I think it can be better. 2 days later, it's better. And then boom, it comes out. So I'm like, yeah, I never even saw that version, And it's like, but it's that fourth quarter mentality, right? It's that final countdown. It's the 2 minutes to go. It's that, it's all that kind of shit that really leads to the greatest talents in the world are how elite are you when you're in crunch time.
Yeah.
Right?
And it's the pivoting in crunch time takes pivots. And it's like, you mentioned Frank and you can't be afraid to, like, no one in their right fucking mind would change that art 2 days before it was released. No one I'm sorry, love you all in this ecosystem. You wouldn't do it. You don't change, these people in this ecosystem don't change bad metas 6 months later because it took them that long and they're still sticking to the same roadmap. And they're afraid.
Well, and because you're going to piss off people. Like that's the reality. When you strive for perfection, you're going to piss people off on the path to perfection.
When you strive for acceptance.
Yeah.
Because when you want perfection, you're like, fuck this, trash it. I don't care what these people say. Fuck them. Like, delay. It needs to be perfect. It needs to be exactly right. And it hits. But these people are so scared of what people will say and think rather than whether their product is what they want it to be. And it's like, if Magic Eden came out tomorrow, I was like, you know what? Ordinals isn't going to work. Polygon's not going to work. We're taking off the platform. They would never. But why not? If the numbers weren't there, why not? People like projects, you can't be afraid. And like, that's probably, if any project was like, what is this real riz of great projects, including Frank, just don't be afraid. Change your mind. I told my team the first day I came in, I was like, I'm going to change my mind every 2 weeks, every 2 days, every 2 months. You guys are going to hate me for it. But you would probably hate me more if I didn't.
Yeah. 100%.
Because we'd be stuck. We'd be old. We'd be nothing. You need to just keep moving. I literally annoy my team every day. I'm like, move, change. Like, I'll be like gung-ho an idea a week later. I'm like, I don't like it no more. They're like, really? After a 3-hour conversation? I was like, well, we know.
Yeah, no, I mean, sometimes you got to wake up and be like, that's not it, And but also then when you do know sometimes even when it doesn't get acceptance, because like you brought up Magic Eden there for a second, and it's like, I think there are definitely some people who go, well, there's obviously always the people that go, you should be focusing on Solana only. And it's like, the reality of it is when we get to like true, like NFTs have made it mainstream and everything like that, people have to be able to buy and not even realize what they're using, right? So I do think we'll come to a point where Magic Eden is not where they're like different stores essentially for like different chains. It'll eventually just be all on one website, and you can buy whatever you're buying. A Bitcoin ordinal, you can buy a ETH NFT, a Solana NFT, a Polygon NFT, an XRP NFT, a fucking Sui NFT. Like, it should truly be like that, because you shouldn't really even know what you're buying. Same thing of like, if you're buying something on Amazon, you don't really know where it was created. You're just buying it. You're just, at that point, it's shipped to Amazon, and Amazon's getting it to you.
And if if your bank had euros in it, Amazon's like, great, it's amazon.com/EU or .eu,
Right.
whatever it wants. And it just changes for whatever need. They don't need to like explain, be like, oh, switch the tab to EU.
Right. Yeah.
Got the euro coming in.
Make it
Euro Maxi.
We gotta build it so that it can scale, right? We gotta remove the friction, make it easy for people, right? And so, yes, there are gonna be some people that look at that and go, but do we need ordinals on there? Do we need even take that, right? I think there were definitely some people that were probably like, wow, Magic Eden put out this ordinals marketplace like so quick, is this a fad? Like, they're putting energy into that, yada yada yada, but they're now easily the number one ordinals marketplace. And
yeah,
so,
it's a great move.
Right. It was an awesome move, right? But that's one of those things where maybe people at the beginning there were definitely some people that were like, what's the point of this? Whatever. Especially because at the beginning the UI wasn't even that great, right?
Wow.
Because they built it so quick, right? But that's build fast and break things, right? Like, might as well get it out. It's the same thing of like ZK Shark and Chartfu and all these people that were working on what DGods was doing. I mean, ZK Shark was running a damn Google Sheet with sales on there. That is that still mind blows me to this day. He was literally buying and selling, tens of thousands of dollars of NFTs on a Google Sheet, right? But build fast and break things. There was no marketplace at that time. So what do you got to do? You bust out a Google Sheet and you do it the old ways.
I bet a lot of the best shit ever has started on some sort of spreadsheet.
Fuck yeah. I mean, you see the early day photos of like Amazon. It was like the shittiest office and like the, some
Look
random
at eBay.
Yeah, all these different things, right? So, but dude, okay. So I'm loving this conversation. We definitely got when you actually roll out Candy Machine and everything like that. When you've got more details that you can drop, you got to come back on here. We got to break it all down. We'll do that. But for right now, why should people be bullish on Cupcake? You guys had obviously the NFC technology. You guys are now working on Candy Machine. Why should people be bullish on the future of Cupcake?
Outside of like, if they get to this part of the podcast, hopefully they're like, shh, don't even talk. We're not building things in light of, I tweeted this the other day. This is the perfect way to say it. Great founders and great executives plant seeds to trees they'll never sit under. My goal is not to make money or be famous or do anything that's like, I'm not about bags. I'm not about, pumping an NFT in volume. I just want to do it right, and I want to make it right because I feel there's so much left undone. And I feel as if I sit back and I don't do it, it's not going to get done. So I'm like, okay, let's get the best team together and let's try to change things for the better. That's our main mission statement. Like, I was on the phone today with someone and I was like, if you're in a startup and any sort of money, I don't care if it's burn rate, profit, revenue is on your priority list, you're in the wrong business. This business is about, from the ground up, getting your hands dirty and just trying to build something that changes your little world. And if you start local, then go national, then go global, cool. Like that's all it is to us, is we just want to really make cool shit that, again, like I said, for Solana, I wear all these things that I'm saying. It's like, I think about these. I think about the fact that like, okay, like, why isn't Solana where it needs to be? Like, I'm Solana Steve. I have to rock in front of my name. And you believe me, it's the worst thing at parties like Azuki. Like, I get hammered. I'm like a walking dartboard for anyone else outside here. And I have to now explain the actions of an entire ecosystem for some reason. I don't care, but like there shouldn't be a reason for that. This should be the best chain, hands down. There should be the most volume here. Ethereum should already be dead. The same way Instagram got boxed out by TikTok because it was the best. TikTok was quicker. It was better. It was faster. That's Solana. Why isn't it working? And I think it's because I have this story like Triller. Most people don't know what Triller is, but if you're in LA, you know what Triller was.
Oh, yeah.
Triller was around for a long time and kind of like almost like Matic, what Matic does. And it was all about buying big names and putting like the baby on there, and Bang Energy was getting posted there. And I always tell people the reason TikTok made it was because of homegrown talent that changed the world. And that's how they won the war. Every famous person, brand from Nike to Jay Alvarez to Logan Paul was on Instagram. The reason TikTok won it is because it was a platform that allowed normal individuals, normies, to become something bigger than life. And I think that hasn't happened enough on Solana. Things on Ethereum became bigger than life. Outside of the gods, nothing's really become bigger than life. And that's not Frank's fault. That's not anyone else's fault. It's not anyone on Ethereum's fault. It's all of our fault. And we have to figure out, okay, where does this go from here? Who are going to be the creators that carry this thing out of the mud and be the Charlie D'Amelios and Bryce Halls and the people that really change a platform? Because again, like CryptoPunks was a free mint. That says everything. It started from nothing. OpenSea was dead for like 3-4 years, from like 2017 to like 19. Then it just went. I think it's on all of us. And I don't think most of us don't realize it because we're all in the motion. We're just all going through the motions. But if we don't, in my mind, if we don't do something within the next 12 to 18 months, there's a good chance that there's no Solana and Steve because Solana's not here. And it's a crazy reality. But the people at MySpace probably thought the same thing. They're probably like, oh, we're good. Facebook, MySpace, we'll compete. So many platforms come and go because people don't realize that if they don't participate in a certain way, it will die. Blockbuster died. Hotmail died. Motorola Razr phones, those things were bitching. Motorola flip phone, everyone's like, yo, I got a red one, I got a blue one. They all died. Great TV shows, great brands, they all die. And it's these little things of, it's always between the lines, but it's like, if we really don't, I was talking to Chico the other day about it. I was like, dude, this thing, he's like, it's not going to go anywhere. I'm like, yes, it will die. I've been through enough metas and enough, from enough like trends and culture and building on social that it will die. Like I told my brother like 2 years ago, I'm like, all these TikTokers, I went through the Vine meta. If they don't react quick, gone. No one knows who Mark Donor is. Look up Mark Donor. Gone.
I mean, but so you're making a great point there because somebody could listen to this and say, is this being pessimistic? And it's not, it's being realistic, right? Like, I think the reality of it is you have to know, if you have no fear of death, then basically there are some positives to that, but there are also a lot of negatives, right? If you're sitting there, if you're eating and drinking every day, like eating, shitty fast food and drinking nonstop and doing drugs and stuff like that, and you're like, I'm invincible, you're going to become an obituary headline pretty quick, right? Like your body can't handle that for so long, right? When you're 20, your body may be able to handle that. 32, body's not handling that so well, right?
Yeah.
So the reality of it is you have to have it's good to have a healthy fear of death because that causes you to react and go, okay, how can I make sure I stay alive, right?
Fear moves you, man.
100%.
Healthy sense of paranoia.
So if you say to yourself, I want the Solana space to grow, I don't want it to die, then ask yourself, what are you doing to help ensure that, right? And I think, what are you doing to make sure that we hold projects to a higher standard? What are you doing to make sure we hold the community to a higher standard, right? What are you doing doing to make sure that we grow this ecosystem and stuff like that? When's the last time you've told one of your friends about somebody who's building some cool shit, right?
Yep.
Like, when's the last time you've watched a project or a podcast that I've put out that's not a project that you hold, right? Because there's also, it's easy to be interested in watching one that you hold. What about the ones that you don't, right?
Like, I don't hold EGOTs. I always tell people that.
Yeah, but it's like, but you pay attention. And it's like, those are the things. What are we doing to grow this space? Because if you're not asking yourself that question, then you're not part of the solution there. And I think, I agree with you. I do think it's something that we have to have, that healthy fear of death, because what that does, it forces you, it becomes crunch time, right? It becomes that fourth quarter mentality of like, hey, if I know there's a chance that we could die, I'm going to make sure we do everything in our power to not die, right? Mm-hmm. And so it forces you to work harder. It forces you to work smarter. It forces you to work more efficiently. It forces you to think more creative and stuff like that. Because if you're off in fucking La La Land thinking we've got no chance of this not working, then you're the one you're the one that's the last person to wake up and smell the roses and realize, hey, this thing died, right? And it's the same thing with Vine. It's the same thing with all those things. If you look at it and say there's no chance of it dying, you're going to be the one that's
going to die. Murphy's Law.
Yeah.
What can happen will happen.
Right. So you need to look at it and say, hey, I'm going to make sure that I bust ass. And that's why I think this space is small enough for every single person who's watching this to realize they have the power to decide whether this survives or not, right? Like, you have the ability to help this grow. You have the ability to help brainstorm for projects that you don't hold. Like, you could, if you see a project, let's say you don't own a Klano, or you don't own a Mad Lad, or you don't own an SMB, but you're like, I've got this great idea for them. Go fucking tell somebody. Like, that's how we grow this thing. And you know what? They may hire you off of that. Or they may be like, you know what? We're going to give you a free one because that idea was such a banger, right? Like, community is powerful. Use it to, be a part of it. Be a productive aspect of that. Be honest about the things that we can do better. All of those different things. None of what you said is pessimistic. There will be some people that hear that and say that's pessimistic. It's not. It's realistic, and that's what we have to do every day. I ask myself when it comes to my podcast, what can I do to grow my platform so I can bring more eyes and attention to the incredible people that are building awesome shit here, right? What can I do? And every day it's part of that grind. Every day it's how can I be more efficient with my editing so I can get podcasts out quicker? Like, what are the different things that I can do, growth techniques to get the clips to do better? All of that is shit that I'm thinking of, not to better me, but to better the ecosystem, because I want to be a part of that shit. When there's a Netflix documentary 20 years down the road about the growth of NFT, I want to be a fucking part of that. Yep. And I want you to be a part of it. And I want every person who sat on this couch to be a part of it. And I want every person who's watching this to be a part of it. I want every person who's in, Solana Twitter spaces at fucking 2:00 in the morning with 12 people. I want them to be a part of that. And they all have the ability. We all have the ability to help this space grow.
100%. Like, it doesn't, you don't need to be an artist. You don't need to be a dev. You can go start something tomorrow and figure it out. And you're right. A lot of people will think it's pessimistic, but I'm always the one that says, look at intent. Look at intent, look at truth, and look at intent. My intent is honestly just to better the ecosystem and hopefully wake it up. Because if I was pessimistic and like the rest of them, like the rest of the people that we were talking about, that move with ego or pride, they could never, ever pump up a project that they don't hold. That's all I do. I try, and I don't hold a lot of projects, not because I don't want to. It's because I like to observe. I always say there's creators and there's consumers. Pick a side. I admire these guys. I pay attention to them. I respect them because that's what competitors do. I'm not a hater. Haters are fans. Fans hate. Winners compete. We're all trying to analyze and figure out, okay, how can we be better? And without competition, there's no fear. There's no urge to get better. If I had no competition, I'm going to sit back, like you said, eat burgers and fries and get fat. But like, if you're an athlete, you're like, I need to be in the gym. I need to work on this. I need to do a diet. I can look at tape. I'm not gonna waste a second. And like, I feel as though there's that thing now in Solana because the real competition left. Real competition's gone. Frank left. Now what? Who's gonna do it? And God forbid he finds grass way green on the other side. He just opened up a door for any project that's actually real. If Solana don't make it. It started on Solana. Solana's going to get the fucking G League. And Ethereum's going to stay the NBA, especially if he opens up that door. And I don't blame anyone for doing it because the goal here is to survive, not please the village people. It's survive, and you have to. And it's like, unless the village people realize that the people that they're putting on a pedestal and the projects they're putting on a pedestal and the metas they're putting on a pedestal are false narratives sometimes, and we don't actually hold each other accountable for that, that door that Frank just opened is going to turn to a fucking highway of projects and artists starting here and hightailing out of here because it's the G League. It's the minor leagues. Start here and then move over. Like, this is where small money is, and once you become like big dog, you go over there. It's like
but that can change. Like, because I think,
Yes.
you know, the ABA, I believe, came out before the NBA, right?
Yeah.
I if I remember
You're right.
correctly.
No, you're right.
And then I think there was a football league before the NFL came
Correct.
out, right? So it's like you can become the big dog.
Yes.
Solana can become the big dog, but
Yes.
you got to act like the big dog then.
Yes, everyone. We got to hold all the way up to Solana accountable. And everyone's got to act like the big dog, and everyone's got to try to push to do something that, no, like every time a project does a drop, it should be like, wow, I never saw that coming, because we know the best projects do that. But if it's like, hey guys, we're gonna put a hat on it now, it's like, what? Do I want to put a hat on it now? Like the whole avatar thing, the PFP thing, it's like no one's doing anything different. It's like we have to think different. We have to have projects that hold themselves to certain standards from the top down and from the bottom up. It's both ways. From the people that are involved in shit, from, you know, the ideas that we have, and it's okay. Like I always say, it's the biggest problem is that, you know, most truth is spun to negativity or FUD. Because it's hard because there's a lot of bullshit that actually is FUD. Most opinions are FUD. Most truth is viewed as FUD, but it's just the truth, and no one wants to tell truth. No one wants the truth. 99% of the world would rather be told they're this than actually the truth. Like, you're lying about me. It's like, that's what we need. And we have to hold each other accountable to a T.
Okay, so here's how I want to wrap this up. One last thought I want to add on to that, because once again, we're going to keep going if I don't stop this. One last thought I want to add on to that is, once again, being responsible for our own actions. If you find yourself listing an NFT for 0.2 Sol over the floor price currently, you're part of the issue. Like, if we want this space to grow, 0.2 Sol is what, like $2, whatever that is. Like, bruh, stop listing your NFT 0.2 above. It should be that you should see an NFT for 50 Sol, and the next one up should be 55, and the next one up should be 60 and 65. Like, we should be 5 Sol differences, not 0.2 Sol. Like, once again, we are the reason why that is the case. Like, every single person, if you find yourself listing an NFT 0.2 Sol above the floor, like, that is part of the problem. Like, we have to do better with it because we need more projects over 100 Sol. We need more projects over 200 Sol, 300 Sol. I don't think we have one over 300 Sol currently.
No.
So it's like it's like we need more above that. That's the reality of it, right? So, but with that, I want to end on a super positive note. So I want you to give a shout out to one or two of your favorite people in the space right now that you see doing cool shit that is innovating in some way, or just people who are adding great vibes to the timeline, or people who are adding great things to just overall the space in some way. And I'll do the same.
Okay, cool. I have to start out with Bartosz. I think he's he's one of the founding fathers, like to say, of Solana NFTs. They're making Cube right now, the exchange. Honestly, one of the nicest, most genuine, brilliant individuals I've ever met in my entire life. And I'm actually just, I love everyone. There's a million people I can name right now just from being at fucking Solana for so long. But I'm going to leave that just at him, because I'll tell you this. When I left Shagmag, it's one of those things like you don't know what to do in life. It's weird, like having something, and I hope no one ever, it's like Frank, I hope he never has to explain, or Luca, have to experience having something you think is going to be forever, and then you wake up one day and it's gone. And it's like, all right, what am I going to do today? There was a time, and I met B, and he kind of just, he knew my history, he knew my past, and he brought me in, and it just changed everything for me.
Fair. I would say for me, I'll go with I mean, man, I did shout him out in the last podcast, but I think I'm gonna give him another shout out. Soul Jakey. Like, I think the content he's putting out is incredible, and I've thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I think Easy with Bodagos has been really fun to watch, and it was when he put out the new art, a few days before Mint. There were some people that were negative about that. I love the new art. I was like, I think it's a huge upgrade. I was glad to see it sell out basically instantly today, and there's been an awesome pump that's come along with that. I love seeing the success of that. I think I think Mad Lads is doing some really cool shit. I've thoroughly enjoyed watching that. I know Klano's got some shit up their sleeves.
They do. I love them guys.
Yeah, they just put out an update earlier today that I thought was like beautifully well done, and I love seeing that. I think at the end of the day, we got a lot of awesome people in the space, and once again, I think it's just I want to give another shout out to Amy Street and Rove, what they're doing. They have they just put out their festival in Nashville, and that's going to be super cool. And it's like, man, it's makes stuff impossible to avoid. When people see photos of you going to these events and stuff like that, Azuki just did that. Like, they just crushed their event in Vegas, right? It's like, it makes it where people, normies, go, what is that? And they want to learn more, right? FOMO's a powerful fucking tool, right? So I want to give a shout out to all those people. But dude, I want to give a bigger shout out to you. I've thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. I know we're, an hour and like 40 or 50 into this, and dude, I've thoroughly enjoyed this, and we'll wrap this up because editing this is gonna be real fun. But dude, appreciate the conversation. Drop your socials. Where can people find you?
Twitter, the Solana Steve. Instagram is Steven John II. But vice versa, man. I really appreciate you having me. It's been great. It's an awesome conversation, and yeah, man, I appreciate you. Thank you.
No problem, bro. Appreciate you too. Appreciate everybody tuning in. We'll chat with you guys soon.
Thank you.
See you guys.